Okay, wait. Let me see if I can. Okay, hello YouTube everybody. This is Flights in Asia. This is Jeff from Flights in Asia.
Yeah,
And
hello. I am Dirk, and I'm from Aviation Updates Philippines.
okay. Okay. I know there's already one person on the stream live super chat. Sranch, if I'm spelling your name right. Can you hear two voices? Is there like you're not crazy? There's two voices on
Yeah,
the YouTube.
my voice already. I think it's good.
Okay. Okay.
This is good. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me. That was the audio. And sorry about that.
Wait, I can hear my voice already.
Okay. So okay. So anyways, I
Am
think
I the only one hearing the playback?
yeah, I think so. Can you just mute that? I guess if that's not gonna work. Sorry about that. Bear with us, folks, ladies and gentlemen. Bear with us. I'm gonna lower my audio here. Okay. I think it's also. I'm gonna mute mine as well. So everybody, welcome. I'm gonna go ahead and just help get started here. Um, this video chat. Thanks for joining us. We are discussing. We've seen the whole, the whole.
Hey, by the way, I think we're having a technical problem right here.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and fix this up. Sorry, folks. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and tech. Sorry, folks. Sorry, folks. Okay. Okay. Let me see. Oh my God, this is an epic disaster. Please stay by. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. We're here. We're having some issues here. Okay. We should have practiced this. Okay. Is that better?
I'm not hearing any playback right now.
Okay.
I think this is good. Are they hearing anything?
Everybody on the chat, are you guys hearing any different kind of voices? I'm hearing mine.
I'm not hearing any playback right now. I think this is. Are they hearing anything?
Okay.
I think it's doing good already. Checking my phone for a live preview. Yeah, I'm hearing no. Okay. I'm hearing another playback again.
Okay, this is really bad. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about this. Okay. Okay, we are getting some really disastrous. Okay. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just mute each mic, because we're in. By the way, folks, we're in separate places. We're on the Skype chat here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and mute one microphone and see if this works. And then when you speak, I'm gonna go ahead and just put the microphone up. I'm gonna go ahead and just put the microphone up. I think that might help. Okay. Is that better, guys, ladies and gentlemen? If that's any better, I just shut off mine. So, oh boy, yeah, I shut
Was
up.
that?
Yeah, I shut off my my audio. So I think it was my audio.
Yeah.
So we'll just see if this runs still. If we hear any feedback, we'll go ahead. Yeah, I can a little bit, but okay. Denzi, okay. Yeah, you're not crazy. Don't worry. This is actually this me and Dirk here has been struggling
Mm.
the last few minutes to fix this audio issues. So I think we're a bit better now. We're a bit better now. We are still getting a little bit of feedback, but I think we can manage this. And if anyone needs any fixes with the audio, please let us know in the chat or
Yeah,
um, just
definitely.
just go ahead and send a quick message to us.
Right, we'll go ahead.
Yeah, Dirk, go ahead and get started. I'm gonna monitor if the audio issues continue.
Yeah, okay. So, we've been really facing this really detrimental pandemic, right? As we all know, the aviation industry has really skyrocketed, no? Especially this year, 2020. But everything turned back when COVID-19 arrived in Southeast Asia, which was originated in Wuhan, China. Yeah. First, the Chinese domestic industry was affected with that, but since the virus was highly transmissible, it was rapidly uh, produced or emitted to others, migrated to other countries overseas. No, this is why Asia Pacific, which is one of the most profitable areas or the busiest sectors in the aviation industry, has highly been affected by this pandemic. The Asia Pacific region houses one of the biggest percentages in terms of flights and the numbers of passengers per year. That's according to data from the International Association of no, the IATA. Forgot. Okay. But anyways, with this COVID-19, there has been many setbacks, yes, but there are also advantages. We have really rethinked and thought on ways to handle this pandemic very well. Okay, so I think the COVID-19, with regards to what we are going to discuss later, uh, will be about the recovery phases that we are going to face. The recovery, what airlines are doing in order to, uh, to relax the financial what do you call this, financial struggles that they are facing right now, because as of the moment, none of the airlines around the world are actually profiting from this COVID-19 scenario. And aside from the Asia Pacific region, the European and the US or the American sectors actually are also struggling from this pandemic, uh, because of this COVID-19, most airlines actually in Europe are already struggling and are at the brink of collapse. One of the first, uh, what do you call this? One of the first side effects of this COVID-19 is the collapse of Flybe, which is Europe's largest regional carrier. They operated hundreds of flights, I mean thousands of flights, and they have thousands of employees as well. So Flybe has been struggling beforehand, and with the entry of COVID in the European region, uh, it proved to be detrimental to that carrier. Proved to be detrimental because of the plunging travel demand, the rising cost for air travel. Uh, with that said, Flybe collapsed. It was the final blow to that very valuable airline. I think Flybe operated for at least 45 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. No, Flybe is relatively old airline already. So they operated Q400s, Embraers, and so on. Now, back to the Asia Pacific region. There are things brewing here that are very interesting to talk about. First of all, how are airlines profiting in this kind of scenario? Okay, what are the new ways to restart air travel? And we will also be talking about the repatriation flights, the all cargo flights uh, in the Asia Pacific region. Now, mostly I am focusing here in behalf of Aviation Updates Philippines. Will be I have known basically much more in the Philippine sector, which I will also discuss later on. Now, in the Philippines, we have three major carriers currently. That is Philippine Airlines, Cebu Pacific, and AirAsia. Two are the low-cost carriers here, and one is the national flag carrier, which is Philippine Airlines. Now, these three have been struggling to maintain operations because since March 17, Philippine President Rodrigo Roa Duterte entered or enforced an enhanced community quarantine over the entire island of Luzon. With that, uh, as you can see, uh, the guidelines released by the government states that no domestic flights shall be operated from the island of Luzon, and international travels are basically limited only to arrivals of Filipino nationals and departures of foreign nationals. Okay, so the only airport operating in the Philippines is the Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Aside from that, no other airport operates in the Philippines. Now, there are only several airlines operating at NAIA. We have Qatar Airways, Korean Air, we have Etihad, and among others. Okay. So, from around 40 airlines, I think there are already only 13 or 10 to 13 that are operating within the region. So that is really a significant change for this Philippine aviation industry. Now, while mentioning the Ninoy Aquino International Airport, which is the main gateway to the Philippines, I've remembered that we have an article here from Aviation Updates Philippines with regards to NAIA losing around 200 million pesos. That is for the first month of the imposition of the enhanced community quarantine in the Philippines. Now, if you are to ask me what is an enhanced community quarantine or the ECQ, that is akin to a lockdown. It's basically a lockdown. It's a community quarantine that is akin to a lockdown. That is similar to that. Okay. So this has limited movements, and tourism is actually at a standstill in the Philippines, which has really affected the aviation industry. Now, according to IATA also, around 548,000 jobs in the aviation industry will be lost because of this pandemic. That is in the Philippines alone. Set let set aside the 11.2 million jobs that are at risk in the Asia Pacific region. Okay, so most of the Asia Pacific airlines are at risk in this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. Now, with regards to how airlines operate this day in the Philippines, the top three carriers operate cargo only flights. That is to aid the government in fighting COVID 19 here in the Philippines. Now, Philippine Airlines has been operating Airbus A330 and Airbus A320 flights to Guangzhou. We also have flights to Shanghai and to points in China. That is to whole cargo, essential medical cargo from China to the Philippines. Okay, that is really an essential role of Philippine Airlines as a national flag carrier. Aside from that, Philippine Airlines has also operated repatriation flights. Repatriation flights, those are sweeper flights or flights that uh, ferry Filipinos back to the Philippines. Okay, Philippine Airlines has flown to Australia, to the United States, to Canada, and to London in order to do those repatriation flights. And basically, as you know, no, Jeffrey, Philippine Airlines will be operating uh, repatriation flights to Milan, Italy by April 28th,
Yeah.
and that is tomorrow. Yeah, Milan, Italy, and also flights, repatriation flights from Manila to New York, I think on April 29 and May 1. So those are one of the importances of the flag carrier. It operates repatriation flights. Now going on with Cebu Pacific, it really operates at a really reduced scale. No domestic and international flights for Cebu Pacific, but they have cargo flights through Cebgo, which is their regional counterpart or the domestic counterpart. Now, Cebgo, which is the subsidiary of Cebu Pacific Air, operates a sole, I mean, only one, ATR 722-500 freighter aircraft. That is what Cebu Pacific uses to earn money. That a single ATR aircraft on its fleet. On its fleet. Okay. Previously, also, Cebu Pacific has retrenched or laid off around, I think it's around 150 cabin crew. This is to further protect the airline from any significant losses in the future. So, Cebu Pacific continues to actively operate cargo flights within the Philippines, but not any passenger flights. It's either international and domestic, no passenger flights at all. Same goes with Philippine Airlines and Philippines Air Asia. With regards to Air Asia, it has also operated flights, repatriation flights to both uh, Denpasar and Bangkok and certain place in Indonesia. Okay, so Philippine Air Asia has already operated these kinds of flights on board their Airbus A320 aircraft, and most significantly, they also have the personal protective equipment, which is in all red, which I think we will be discussing later on. How's that, Jeffrey? Is it
Yeah, that's
already
good.
doing good?
Yeah, I think we have no complaints with the audio so far, so we're good
Yeah,
so far.
I
Uh,
think.
yeah. So as Dirk has mentioned, the news going on in the dito sa Filipinas, if you're for all our kababayans online right now with us, are I think at the issue also besides beyond the current lockdowns and shutdowns of the airlines, we are gonna start seeing some airlines start picking up. There's some. I'm not gonna go over it right now because I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure some of our viewers here do have more information. From what I've heard, there is some indication that besides the some markets of AirAsia, such as Thailand, is looking to open up their flights on May 1st.
Mm-hmm.
This is
Okay.
depending. Yeah, actually, this is just. I think this today or yesterday came out. I'll try to bring up the article here. But for the most part, we have to assume that things are still under lockdown.
Yeah, yeah, no. Typically, most of the Asia Pacific airlines are actually in countries that have enforced a lockdown, so it's really hard for them to restart operations. And I think Indonesia is in a lockdown also.
Yeah, actually, they just did their open. They just started their lockdown just a few days ago, I believe. I'm not sure. Can anyone confirm? I don't have it with me,
Mm.
but here we go. It's an article here. These airlines, keep in mind the Thai carriers. I'll actually get to that. The other stuff I want to discuss is the potential mergers and closings of some airlines, and you've already touched up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
this is as a business has already cut into the revenues of many of these airlines, and what are they going to be doing beyond the lockdowns and of course the health, we are how passengers, especially, I'm going to be also trying to come in and share, or we can also all discuss how passengers as travelers who are right now have had canceled flight plans, how's that going to affect us, and with these airlines,
Yeah.
the landscape of aviation, what are we going to expect from the aviation industry? And it's a love and hate relationship, but we depend on it. Businesses and regular travelers who want to see their friends or go to the next vacation spot. Um, so we are going to be discussing more of the in-flight services, how that's going to be affected, the health checks, and what airports and airlines are going to be doing. So if there's anything else that we'll just go ahead and just randomly discuss some news, and if there's anything that pops into the chat, we'll go ahead and.
Yeah. Sure.
So, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, feel free to send anything. I believe, are you gonna be on Twitter too, or just here? There.
Maybe we should also be on Twitter
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that we can be more accessible.
Yes. Yes. I
Yeah.
don't know. My screens are already locked. I'm already like crowded my screens here.
Yeah. Sure.
So,
No.
can I ask a question of our travelers here? If there's anyone of you have had travel plans or someone you know whose travel plans have been suspended because of the shutdown so far. Anyone here? I mean, this is a good time to discuss this right now. I think this is one of the big things with the refunds, because right now the airlines do need a lot of cash right now. I think the first priority, and we've already touched up, like Dirk has already mentioned about the cargo flights of the Cebu Pacific and
Oh yeah. Mm.
Philippine Airlines and the
Yeah,
airlines.
speaking of refunds, the AirAsia Group, by the way, has really begged, or offered to its passengers to really take the opportunity to opt for the credit or the travel fund instead of the refund instead, because as we all know, airlines, as you've said, are needed to or do need to have that kind of money to survive. Now, uh, positively and optimistically, AirAsia said that around 80% of its guests or passengers have opted to do the travel fund or the travel credits instead of the refund. So I think with that move with the airlines, uh, this will really help them a lot. Will save them a, we will save them. It will save them a lot of money because according to Tony Fernandez during his uh, last during his email to AirAsia customers, around 96% of the AirAsia fleet is grounded. That is group wide. We have AirAsia in Indonesia, Thailand. We have in Malaysia as a center, the Philippines. We have in Japan, and so on and so forth. According to him, yeah, so they said it's 96% of the entire fleet. I've also written here an article in AUP stating Fernandez plans for AirAsia. Okay. And interestingly, what is mentioned here in the article, according to financial service provider that's CGSCIMB, it says that the low-cost airline AirAsia itself could really disperse up to 527 million ringgit in a month. That's 527 million in 1 month. Now, the airlines have standing commitments with regards to financial aspects, such as the aircraft fuel, which is on contract, aircraft leases that take out the most, and also the salaries. So without this money, airlines could collapse. And I think we should also discuss later on, Jeffrey,
Mhm.
about the plans of the Malaysian government to maybe unify AirAsia and Malaysia Airlines.
Yeah. By the way, I'm gonna recognize two comments. Raleigh, while you were discussing that, Raleigh Ching mentioned all my flight schedules are canceled, and then
Mhm.
Zaid Mandagan mentioned travel fund. I'm not sure, Zaid. Are you seeking to get the travel? Did you seek to or decide to just get the travel fund, or just go ahead and answer it? We'll see the answer down here. I'll mention it later on. Yeah, actually, with that, there was actually an interesting article from the. I just saw
Mhm.
this just a few minutes ago. Um, Now, before I get to it, the Malaysian government and has been discussing the prospect of, or some analysts like us, we've been discussing potentially like Air Asia, Malaysia Airlines, because Malaysia Airlines isn't doing well either. They have not
Mhm.
been. Their future has been very much in a
Yeah.
very questionable position, we should say. But they've managed to continue on. Um, and it's a highly politicized issue in Malaysia. And now we have this weird, odd, kind of peculiar. I don't know. Here we go. There's a lot of been talks of discussions of whether they should merge. Here we go. Apparently, Malaysia's ex-aviation chief Abdul, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, Mr. Rahmando, his last name, uh, Azardin Abdul Rahman, and he mentioned about the slots of AirAsia could potentially be used, and AirAsia has eaten away, no question, has eaten away into the revenues of Malaysia Airlines.
Mhm.
They've
Yeah.
become the top dog airline in Malaysia. So with this, and now that they're, and again, this is political, so I can assume that Malaysia's aviation heads, they've butted heads with Tony Fernandez and AirAsia
Mhm.
before. There's a lot of tension in the past with these two parties. And Malaysia's government, I believe the airport authority. I think Tony Fernandez just basically lambasted, just bashed the Terminal 2 at Kuala Lumpur Airport, which
Mhm.
pissed off a lot of people. So there isn't that really good. So they're really eyeing this as like, hey, wow, this is just me thinking that this is an opportunity for, hey, Air Asia's not doing well now. We can recover our, which I believe, um, Malaysia Airlines has always been the premier brand. Even though Air Asia is now the top airline in domestic wise, I actually do see it covering it. I see that Malaysia Airlines is still considered the flag carrier, not just a flag carrier, but a lot of pride and political
Yeah, the
implications.
national symbol of Malaysia, perhaps.
A lot of political implications go along with Malaysia Airlines. The history,
Mhm.
the economics of it. There's a lot of businesses that like Air Asia, but Malaysia Airlines has its own ecosystem. That should it go down, or should it go get to another buyer, then that whole system will be thrown into abyss, basically. So they're not. I think that's why Malaysia Airlines they've been very hesitant to sell it. There's been a few offers, but including one from a private firm. I had an article on the website, and I believe um they mentioned about a private firm of former Malaysia Airlines executives, some of them, and then others. But okay, so but yeah,
Right. Mhm.
that's a hot topic issue in Malaysia right now, a very hot topic because of
Yeah, but
how big they
came
both those.
across this
Yeah,
Malay Mail article saying that Malaysia AirAsia merger is really an unlikely option that is
yeah,
based on aviation experts. But for me as well, no, this is an unlikely option too. I think they are trying to mimic what Singapore Airlines system is in Singapore. They have Scoot as their low-cost carrier, and now they are integrating Silk Air with Singapore Airlines mainline fleet. That is to create a unified brand with Singapore Airlines. So basically, it
yeah,
will just be Singapore Airlines and Scoot. So if this isn't too political, I think that is what they are trying to do.
Yeah.
You know,
But with that though,
but
yeah, I
mm,
think sorry. In terms of the differences, there's like a stark contrast with Malaysia Airlines and Singapore. Singapore Airlines is primarily international services. Malaysia is like
yeah.
a lot of domestic services. So the model, there could be some elements of you can take, but for the most part, I do believe they're two different kind of entities. And since the 1970s split of Singapore, Malaysia, the ideologies of how they've continued to operate and their priorities have
Mm-hmm.
basically stayed the same since that split. By the way, before we go forward, Zaid replied back to us. Instead of refund, it was converted to a travel fund. Expiration will be up to one
Oh yeah.
year.
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
just want to shout out my friend right here. That's my friend.
Oh, okay. Hey, Zaid.
Zaid. Zaid
Zaid.
Mandangan.
Zaid.
So hello there. From Davao City, also the Philippines. So
Okay.
hello. Thank you for listening. I hope you invite others well to uh listen to our live podcast here.
Also, just go ahead and participate too. If you just send a chat message, or I'm not sure. Yeah, we didn't plan on the social media part. So if you
Oh yeah.
guys yeah, going back to Air Asia and Malaysia Airlines, yeah, the probability they're just the Malaysian government has a thorn with. I assume that the way they have interacted with Tony Fernandez and the way have Tony Fernandez has used
Mm-hmm.
Twitter to an extent, as outspoken as he is, and sometimes he is right when it comes to looking at certain things in the Asia Pacific and how travel is. He has been a thorn to like the Malaysian government at times. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're just like looking at this like, hey, wow, this is a great opportunity. Sige na. Let's try to see if this is gonna fuck them. Sorry, f them over.
Oh well. Speaking of AirAsia, uh, no, have you seen their personal protective suits already? The all
Yeah,
red PPEs.
this is gonna be the new fashion trend of aviation,
Oh
and
yeah, exactly. Now the airlines already leaning to that kind of fashion already. Philippine Airlines actually called it as their new temporary cabin crew uniforms. If you have also seen the PALS version or the minimalist inspired version of the personal protective equipment, I think it's okay. But I think with the kind of the red toned suit of AirAsia, I think I'm liking it more. What do you think?
I don't know. It looks like a funeral. I mean, actually, it looks kind of scary. Actually, I'm not sure if you're gonna have
uh,
little. It's actually the red colors is good for like a young audience, but when it comes, like, especially Air Asia's
mhm,
market is
mhm.
usually young folks like ourselves. Pero the issue that I have is you know, it's always seen as a young airline. But, of course, the red is a little bit too much red for me in an airplane. I mean, their seats are red and black.
Everything's red already.
I
Yeah.
can't have too much red. I'm sorry, but functional wise, I do believe this is gonna be used for at least maybe the next 3 months, at least for the repatriation flights. We know that for sure.
Yeah.
But for the overall usage, I don't think we can live in fear that long. Like we cannot continue to be living in this kind of fear of, and eventually we do want to get things back up and running. There's a lot of people now trying to say, we got to get into the U.S. right now. Actually, I do kind of support them. I say,
Yeah.
if we don't get workers out there and working, we're not going to have a food supply. And if we don't have a food supply, we're not going to have the food supply for the medical workers, the flight attendants, the pilots to do these essential work that we need to have done. Um,
Yeah.
at some point, we can't let things remain closed for so long, and the economic impact is already big enough. And I know I just saw like Boris Johnson of the UK just mentioned, hold on, be patient to this the population in the UK. Um,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, we do have these airlines. We cannot continue to live in like because historically we had 9/11. I
Yeah.
remember I
Exactly.
remembered I remembered 9/11, and immediately all the security changed overnight. The way secured airport
Yeah.
security changed overnight
I
across.
have really read an article, no, saying that since the 9/11 incident, a couple of decade ago,
Mhm.
they turned airports into security centered. But
Yes,
now with the COVID-19 pandemic, they're turning it into health centered already. So that is one of the primary difference or significant difference that we are going to expect after this COVID-19 pandemic. Don't you
I
agree?
I don't think so, because
Mm,
we've had SARS, we've had swine flu, we've had these different. We've always at the end of the day, we're like, airplanes. Probably the most disgusting, sometimes the most disgusting seats.
exactly.
We go through a lot, and at this point of social distancing,
Mm.
you know, we can't social distance on a 150 seat Airbus A320. I mean, it's
They
hard.
are actually planning it already,
Yes, yes,
which they fear are killing low cost airlines
yeah.
and low cost travel.
They need the load capacity. So Ryanair's actually Richard O'Leary, I believe his name. I keep forgetting his name, but he actually there's a
Michael O'Leary.
Michael O'Leary. Yeah, there you go.
Mm,
I do agree with him, even though that Ryanair's reputation, and he's actually very true, right on the mark. At the end of the day, we cannot have these. I mean, for the full service airlines, they're gonna be able to get these different seating where you have the dividers and all that. Low cost
yeah.
airlines, this is not part of their model. Um, this is why I am very concerned about these low cost airlines. At first, I wasn't, and then after a few months, I'm like, okay, maybe we do need to be concerned. Um, yeah. In terms of that kind of thing, we're gonna eventually, like I said, things. We've gone through different pathogens, and each time we fly, we risk a lot of getting sick a lot. You know,
Hmm.
there's a lot of pathogens. We God knows what we can find on those planes. And no matter how much these planes are cleaned up, the person sitting on your, let's say, sitting at seat 9A right before the flight before could have been like what, had some sort of measles or Ebola even. We've had that happen, and it's only COVID that we've actually begun to really fear for our health in places that we
Yeah.
normally don't normally fear for our health.
Mm. Yeah, it is because it was social media has played a great role on this also. We have changed the perception with regards to these kinds of viruses or pandemics because as we all know, just back a few years ago with SARS and also MERS, it wasn't really that being talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe for my part, because social media was not really abundant by that time. So with the great use of social media today, I think information is really getting far out and added with fake news and things that cause public panic. So I think this is really a deadly mix for us. No.
Yeah, I think we, yes, I'm not, and before going forward, I need to preface this saying that I am not going to downgrade or say that the people who have died and people families who have personally been affected by the illness.
Mm,
When you're dealing with economics, you have the health argument, and then we have the economic and the industries that, like aviation is one of the hardest hit because
mm,
it deals with so much. It deals with the food, it deals with service, it deals with hospitality, tourism, and it's often that kind of link now.
mm,
Back in the old, like the Spanish flu pandemics or before, it was ships and boats that brought people. Today, it's airplanes that can travel 20 hours from Singapore to New York.
mm,
Um, and illnesses will travel fast. These are things that we have to live with. That doesn't, and of course, the airlines can only do so much. But at the end of the day, basic principles, wash your hands. These are kind of things that, as travelers, coming from a traveler, like, okay, face
mm,
mask. If you go to Japan and Korea and some parts, maybe China, arguably in Hong Kong, you'll have people wearing face masks. This is part of their life. This is a
mm.
normal. This isn't, in the States probably, you know, or Europe. It's like, why wear face masks? This kind of weird. But when you go to Japan, Korea, these like Northeast Asian countries, it's normal, very normal. I think that's gonna be something. I think will be more and more people, especially elderly folks who are more at risk of illnesses, especially during the time. And on airplanes, I think these, like I said, the suits, as cool as they could be, this is becoming to the point where we're like, okay, at some point, are we really gonna have people wearing hazmat suits on planes? Have we gotten to that point where you know and if it gets to the point where do we have to sacrifice carry-on luggage? I hope that doesn't happen.
No, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you
Uh,
if you
what can you
guys
say about this I think I've read something online. Facebook, that was a Facebook post. The collapse of the it says the collapse of the aviation industry will also lead to a detrimental uh, collapse of the economy. Well, what can you say about that?
I think yeah, like I said before, it deals with a lot like oil prices when it just goes that
Mhm.
so low. It does have an impact. So, but then again, you talk about. I think it's more of like the aviation industry is affected more by the economic shocks or the health scares over the
Mhm.
aviation industry like impacting. It's usually the other way around. You know, um,
Mhm.
so what happens on, let's say you lose confidence, like let's say people don't go shopping and all that, more likely they're not going to go fly.
Mm,
Yeah, you shut down a city, they're not going to travel. Wuhan, they basically shut down the airport. The airport didn't operate for like 2 months. But the weird thing is, like, you see reports now in China where they're like offering airfares, and they're offering seats like rows. So yes, I think the good news is, I mean, if there's any silver lining now for us travelers, the airfares
mhm.
may. I mean, this is highly debatable because the question of supply of the flights. But if it gets to the point where they're really that desperate and people are not, like I said, at the end of the day, it's about people's individual choices. It's
Yeah.
people's individual choices of where if they go shopping or eating, or whatever, buying online or doing business, whether they decide to do it on a Zoom meeting or Skype over traveling. If you do, you really need to go to New York for that meeting when you can just like probably just go on your laptop and have it on Zoom.
Yeah.
And
This, yeah, as I've said, this will really change the landscape or the perspective of people. With regards to the changes in the aviation industry, uh, after COVID-19, first off, we may see a more steady uh, increase or a more steady increase in the passenger demand after the COVID-19 pandemic, months after the resumption of flights in their respective countries. Now, in the Philippines, that's hopefully flights will resume by May 16 if the enhanced community quarantine will not be moved. Now, as I've said, one of the changes is the perspective of people. Do they really need to travel? This community quarantine has opened up that kind of possibility that uh, schools may go remote. Work from home will likely be imposed even more, and with that, I think it will also affect air travel in that way. We will be seeing reduced demand for business travelers, especially with conferences and seminars held already online. No, that is what Cebu
yeah,
Pacific has said in their recent filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission in the Philippines. So I think that is one of the changes. Now, after the COVID-19 pandemic, we will be seeing a steady increase, but I think we will not reach into the peak levels of 2019 that fast. And I don't
I
even
see.
think we will reach the 2019 levels in a few years. That is according to analysts also.
Yeah, we are so far away. I think maybe a year or two. That's my prediction. But I think um,
Mm,
right now I'm not sure how it's. I mean, we're gonna see like how it is gonna play out, and I think the first two markets to look at is to see if there's any ideas. China and South Korea. Now
mm,
these, with China, in terms of Chinese aviation, they had their boom. They're still expected to be the number one aviation market in Asia, not just Asia but the world. They're gonna surpass the U.S. I think they will still do it. Um, at the end of the day, like I said, like as we've mentioned already, you're not gonna stop someone who wants to see their family. I think that's one of the kind of
mm,
travelers that is gonna be the ones who are gonna be driving growth in the aviation industry. And like I said, aviation is a love and hate relationship, but we so need to get that damn ticket. You're willing to pay for that damn ticket if you want to go see your aunt or
mm,
uncle in some other city. You know, I'll gripe about airlines. There are some things I don't like about them. You know, the growth of baggage fees. How inconvenient it is. But at the end of the day, it's that kind of relationship that we have, for now, unless we get flying cars and personalized. Actually, here's another thing too, like especially with people fearing like getting infected with a large group of people. We might
Mm.
start seeing like a Uber or Grab style, you know, kind of private aircraft companies
Yeah. Mm.
seizing. I'm not sure if anyone's willing to do it, but in this chat, but I'm pretty sure that there's like some um, market for that, or potential market for some folks who have the money, of course,
Yeah.
um,
Maybe in the future.
to have that
We will
kind
see.
of yeah, to have that kind of book a trip. I know I'm not sure if they have it in the States, but or in Europe, but this is something that could be possibly like small planes just going to like
Mm.
a like Boracay, for example, Manila Boracay for a weekend, and then on the way back some other group books it, and then if that's the future of aviation, then this could be. And people are scared of, they want to travel, but they probably don't want to
Mm. They'll
that
be cutting it down to essential travel.
yeah, or they'll try to like minimize the social distance further,
Mm.
that could. Yeah, by the way, folks, anyone here who is currently still looking to travel beyond when the shutdowns got lifted, just go ahead and mention it. And good luck getting those. I mean, the tickets, I think you can still buy like after. For the Philippines, I know it's May 16. Travel tentatively scheduled for resumption, but again,
Mm.
depends on the
Subject
government.
to change. Highly
Yes.
subject to change.
Yeah, and all these resumptions are subject to change. India, I haven't heard. India is a big market also. Um, that's another one that I'm keeping an eye on, because that's you have several highly competitive aviation scene down there.
Mm. Oh, by the way, aside from those, I've also forgotten to mention that after the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, the effects of COVID-19 in the aviation industry, airlines will try to switch from a hub and spoke system into a more direct system. The hub and spoke system that's traveling from hub to hub via connecting flights, and also with the direct system, launching flights directly
Yeah,
from destination A to B from secondary airports, think like that. Think that that will also be a new trend for airlines in the near future. uh, Airlines also have decided to retire or decommission
the
their
seven
Airbus
four sevens, the
A380s.
seven four
Yeah,
sevens are also getting like
the
the boot now.
747s exactly, and the A340-600s of Lufthansa, from Air France, from the European carriers mostly. They have really decommissioned most of their fleet. And uh, KLM 747 has advanced KLM has advanced the 747 retirement for over a year because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So in the near future also, we would be seeing newer aircraft in the skies.
Yeah,
We are seeing less older aircraft after the COVID-19 pandemic, since most of them will be decommissioned
that
and
was yeah,
grounded.
that trend was going on before. That trend was actually not really that new. It's not. I don't really see
Mm,
it as a the COVID just the pandemic just accelerated it even further. Um,
yeah.
Actually, here's a side actually mentioned. One of the airports in the Philippines applied the concept of social distancing. They were putting some mark when it comes to the seating arrangement at the boarding gates. What does it imply? Okay, you want to start? You want to just go ahead and answer that?
Yeah. I've seen posts about that. I think it's in Davao also. They have already started putting up markings in the airports from the baggage claim areas, check-in areas. There are markings on the floor to which people should stand on, especially on the seats. Per row, for four-seater seats, you could only seat on two. That's either on both sides. So meaning two seats in the middle are empty. That is for the pre-departure area. Now, what does that imply? As I've said earlier, airlines are also, health authorities have been suggesting, not specifically health authorities, but some authorities are suggesting that airlines do maintain social distancing when flights resume amid the COVID-19 pandemic. No, this implies the I think it will go on for maybe a few months only, because after the COVID-19 pandemic, if the pandemic will be downgraded or removed by the World Health Organization, then I think it is safe to assume that flights will bounce back, passenger demand will bounce back. So I think this is just a temporary move for air carriers, and I think uh, those markings or social distancing, for the concept of social distancing, they were placed there for the meantime only. That is to operate initial flights to and from domestic points in the Philippines. So that is only for temporary. I don't see doing that for long being practical.
Yeah.
What do you
I
think, Jeffrey?
yeah, this is I mean, I can understand for like small airport. I mean, okay, typical
Mm,
the average number of flights per hour maybe at Philippine, for example, Philippine domestic Iloilo, or I'd say maybe a small airport. Let's figure out a small airport for Davao or Iloilo. I'm assuming maybe three Airbus A320s. That's around what? Maybe five, four, no, no, 450 seats, 500 maybe, somewhere between that. Because I know the capacity is like 180, so 360, around 540 to 600 people, and you have like the ATRs. That is manageable. But if you're talking about like a international airport like Tokyo Narita, now we're thinking you're going to like Beijing Capital Airport, the busiest in the world.
yeah, that won't do.
This is easier said than done. You're talking
Yeah.
about millions of people, thousands of people per day, and aircraft handling over 500 people. This social distancing thing on airplanes is, I don't know. I don't know how you can apply social distancing to avoid a virus when the air circulates in a way where it's basically all over. You infect one person, the whole airplane's infected.
Mm,
It's very aviation is like one of those. That's one of the weird things that I think has not been solved in aviation, where how do you detect pathogens on the air? Because like, you cough in a plane, everybody likely could get a cold. That's just, I don't want to say it's unfortunate. I wish it didn't happen that way and people would wear
mm,
masks and wash their hands and all that. At the airports, this will go on for maybe 6 months. This is actually a good move in the Philippines and very practical, I believe.
mm.
But when you get to like Manila, and you go to um, Terminal One or Terminal Three, this is probably not some way you're gonna cause more crowds. And
Yeah, exactly.
the more people that you have in the terminal, like Terminal Three, for example, like crammed in that area, for example, the check-in area at Terminal Three for Cebu Pacific, that can get pretty crowded. Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of people per time, especially the number of flights Cebu Pacific operates out of Terminal Three.
Mm.
You know, are we putting more people at risk of any infection, or like, you know
So,
versus
just give
climate?
it,
Yeah,
I think it will just stay there for just a
yeah,
few months, maybe three to 6 months,
yeah.
perhaps. And
We can't live
later
like
on,
this.
when air travel demand picks up, uh, it will really not be practical.
Yeah, we can't live like this forever. I mean, this at the end of the
Mm.
day, I think even the flight attendants probably don't want to wear those suits. They want,
Yeah.
and the essence of being a flight attendant. God bless them right now. Some of them who are at home, they can't work. This is one of the most social, like, the way they work is one of the most social kind of work, the lines of work. Um, and often aren't as appreciated as we take it for granted that they do the safety demonstration, but they
Mm.
risk a lot. Air turbulence can happen, and
Yeah.
they break a bone or whatever. Then you have the issue of contacting illnesses, and one of the industries that gets affected is the aviation industry, where you have flight attendants getting sick.
Mm.
But if there's any flight attendants or flight crew on this channel, or on the comment section after this what gets on YouTube, if they want to chime in, how their thoughts are, this is something that I would like to ask them. Like, what's your thoughts on working after this? Because they're the ones who are on the front line in aviation. Now they're
Mm.
not necessarily like fighting the virus, but they're exposed to a lot of different things, a lot of different situations. Um, this is something that this has to be discussed amongst them. And I believe in the US they're asking for face masks. I think they're gonna be fine with wearing face masks. And I mean, you know they'll be fine with that. The suits, I don't think they want to. I personally, this is me. If I was a flight attendant, I don't know if I want to be wearing that for like
Mm.
for forever, like as for the rest of my career. Like
Yeah.
this is not something that at the end they want to have that smile, they want to have that service quality where you feel personal, and this suits does not feel personal. Now the health concerns, immediate health concerns, are necessarily warranted, um, but this kind of does really like raise questions now, like you know yeah, this is the most important question: how long are we going to go forward with the and is this the new normal, or are we just like um because I don't think there's supposed to be there should be like we should have to go to a new normal. I think we can really find a way. We're gonna have to live with it. We live with different,
Mm.
like I said,
Yeah.
we live with different diseases all the time, and I think this is just one of those illnesses we're gonna have to learn to deal with in our daily
Mm.
lives.
Well,
Everybody,
at the end
everybody from
of the
yeah,
day,
yeah,
we'll be developing vaccines, and with that, COVID will no longer be feared, and everything will get back to normal. And that new normal they are saying now will just be temporary.
yeah, and
Okay.
yeah. To go along with that, what are your thoughts on like health checks?
Mm.
Yeah, this is
Ah, just
something,
like
and
Emirates.
yeah, and anyone else who wants to comment on this health checks,
Oh
like
yeah, please do.
like
Mm.
if you want, if people are like certificates, this is like, I'm gonna go ahead and start this because I'm actually really thinking about this. And
Yeah,
is
sure.
this, again, we're going back to, is this practical? At the end of the day, we are, as people, we want to like have the easiest way to do things. And I think in a way we are going to an extent, like I said, the flight attendants, the pilots, the airport workers, you know no matter if you get a certificate of an ill, you're immune to something, or you're free of free of COVID, you might contact it some point. You don't know. See, there's a lot of
Mm.
big what ifs between the time you get that health certificate or whatever, and there's discussions of it being when you book your travel. And this is kind of like, is this really necessary at this point? Because like I said, between the time you book your travel to the time you get on the plane, it's kind of like, you don't know what's gonna happen. You don't know if you're gonna get
Mm.
sick. There's people who book their travel, they're well, and then all of a sudden, like what, weeks later, before they travel, they get sick, or during their trip. So that, I don't know if how practical. I don't think it's as practical as, and if airlines are, yes, the health. Like I said, I'm not going to say that we should not. This is just a flu, bro, or whatever. But we do have to consider, yes, we now I think this raised awareness of like, okay, let's not try to, like, don't cover your coughs on the plane. If you're sick, stay home. Don't go on a plane. Wash your hands, bring hand sanitizer, wear masks, whatnot. Okay, great.
Mm.
But these health checks, I think that's going to go a bit too far, and at that, like, it's going to cause a little bit of a hassle for travel. And we've
Well, maybe that will be the case for repatriation flights only.
yeah,
But for
okay,
commercial flights that go daily, uh, yeah, I see it not practical also. But yeah, as you said, not saying that health is not important, but in the long run,
I see.
I think it's not that practical.
Okay, so we have two comments here. Citation. By the way, Citation's one of the frequent guests. He can't hang out, but
Oh yeah.
wanted to drop by to the crew. So it's just a shout out. So what's up, Citation? Actually, yeah, he's also based in the Philippines too. By the way, Mohammed, what is the situation of Delta? I believe last I checked, they're getting a bailout from the U.S. government, and
Was it approved already by the government?
so far, actually, that's a good. And I haven't really followed up. I know, and here's one of the things too. Like, they were one of the first airlines to suspend, like, since the U.S. suspended the flights to China, one of
Mm.
the first countries to do so. And Delta has several direct air links from like Beijing and Shanghai to the states. So those were, and of course they have the Tokyo hub, which they connect with. Or actually, no, no, no. Korean Air's Seoul hub. So that kind of is a stopgap. But there's a lot of travel between Korea and the states, and also a lot of travel from Incheon to China as well. That's one of the top markets of Korean Air. So
Mm.
um, yeah, so far I I I do believe they are getting a bailout with the U.S. airlines, and I think there's some issues with some folks. So like, how come these airlines have gone through so many bankruptcies in the past, and they can. I do think Delta, an airline, they're strong. I mean, this is just me here. They're strong domestically. They're not so strong internationally, and
Mm.
they're an airline that I think can be resilient in the U.S. domestic market. And in the U.S. domestic market, people still want to travel by air. That's actually But in terms of the bailout, let me just go ahead. Just go. If you have anything to say, like anything else, go ahead. I'm gonna look at,
Oh yeah.
verify, double check my info here.
Just trying to substantiate what you said, no. Uh, with regards to Mohammed's question, Delta is actually just like most of the airlines. It's not going good. For the first quarter alone, this is according to a report from New York Post. It says Delta Airlines lost around 534 million US dollars. That is for the first quarter alone. Now, travel demand, according to them, from April through June has plummeted 90%. That's 90% that's compared to last year due to travel restrictions being put up by the US government also. Now, with due to the plummeting of the demand and the imposition of these travel restrictions, Delta Airlines have parked all of its Airbus A320 fleet and the Boeing 737-900ER fleet for the whole duration of the lockdown. Okay. Uh, Delta has also grounded some 650 jets all in all. This is due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is the worst downturn the airline industry has ever seen. And just to emphasize that, uh, the COVID-19 pandemic is the worst uh, downturn in the airline economics since 9/11. So this is really kind of big, you know. So according to Delta CEO, that's Eb Bastian, he says that it will take at least 3 years for the airline to recover to the normal operations. So that is really a big and sad news for me.
Okay, I have the here we go. The U.S. airlines and the Treasury Department. So this is like a U.S. government bailout, 25
Oh yeah,
billion in payroll assistance, part of the 50. So overall, they're getting 50 billion. This is not just Delta. This is American, United, the
that's US dollars.
yes. I think this is basically to recover the costs of business lost.
Mm,
They're gonna have to work to really restore like the customers back. And I think Delta, like I said, Delta is in a good position. uh International travel, they're not really that strong compared to United.
mm,
United has those key markets like New York and Chicago, so their hubs. San Francisco, is kind of debatable, but um New York, Chicago, versus Delta has Atlanta. Atlanta, not to downplay Atlanta for those anyone here who's from that area, but when you're thinking about New York or Washington D.C. versus like for those high paying international travelers, I'd actually bank on United for those kind of routes.
mm.
Washington D.C. Their hub in Dulles. American Airlines. There you go. More payroll. So no layoffs until October right now. So here we go. Here you, this article is from the Business Insider. Hayes, hello, what's up? Hayes is another commenter. Usually he's on these streams. He's from Malaysia, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello.
So yeah.
Hello from the Philippines.
So yeah. Is there any other things that we want to discuss? There's a lot of things. I think there's
Ah,
a lot of stuff we can really go in, and not just Asia. If there's any other airlines that you guys want to discuss here,
mm.
to our knowledge, we're gonna try to answer to the best of our ability. Like me, I'm trying to search for information. I do
Yeah,
have I've heard the news, but I just don't want to be saying too much. So just go ahead and fire away in the chats, guys.
okay, just want to just add this to our topics list now. Just want to discuss about the aircraft manufacturers in terms
Okay. Oh,
of
that's a good one.
the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I've been seeing news from Airbus that it is already bleeding cash drastically and may cut at least 13,500 jobs in the United Kingdom. So there is really a slowdown in terms of aircraft production. And as we all know, AirAsia has opted not to take six Airbus A320neo family aircraft this year. So Airbus has been selling this six aircraft to any potential buyer. Now, according uh, to an article here from The Guardian, the aircraft manufacturer, the European aircraft manufacturer, is already bleeding cash at an unprecedented speed, and it is already considering all options to uh to make an effective move in this COVID-19 outbreak. Now, Airbus is just one of the aircraft carriers that has been facing great losses in the industry. Boeing has also faced significant losses, and they have not totally recovered from the 737 MAX crisis last year. No? So I think this is a much more heavier impact to Boeing company, aside from Airbus, of course. Now, just read that Boeing has backed out with the Embraer joint venture deal. Yeah, I think it's 1.4 billion.
Mm-hmm.
No, the Embraer deal, which was set to have been signed within the year, but both airlines have not settled it, mainly because of the downturn of the economy with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, and also it says Embraer was not has failed to adhere to the protocols, I mean the terms in the contract that they had. But basically, just to sum it up, much like airlines, the aircraft manufacturers have already faced is already facing a lot of pressure right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. We've seen also canceled orders, no, and I think mainly for Emirates, they have also canceled orders from Boeing, Etihad, and aside from that, have stored the entire fleet. What can you say, Jeffrey?
Yeah, in terms of Boeing 737 Max, they had there's a bulk of orders that I believe Avalon, and then there's
Mm.
also the Avalon order was a big one.
Is that an aircraft leasing company, right?
Yeah, the leasing companies. There's another one in China actually. GE. No, actually, wait.
Ah,
No, wait, wait,
GS.
wait. Not Avalon. It was GE. Um, sorry if it's off the top of my head. Um,
Mm,
then you have the China. There's a China development, I believe, a bank. No,
mm,
there's a firm in China that actually not just Chinese airlines, but they deal with a lot of other global airlines actually. So I think that's one thing. The leasing companies are gonna be essential. I think they're gonna be the companies that will be providing the jets for like, because of course when these airlines may be opting. Here's another thing. Yeah, these leasing companies may be the ones providing the aircraft for the short term, while these airlines are assessing if they need to add more capacity.
mm,
Hey, I need a 787. All right, okay, get you one. All right, sure, sign a contract. Um, some cancel it. Okay, so we got some comments here. Mark Romel, aside from the Boeing and Embraer, but yeah, I'll get to the comments first, but I'll just go ahead and finish this real fast. Where was I? The Boeing about Boeing and China. That order, the 737 Max. Yeah, the 737 Max. I think this is a little bit for the Boeing company. This is now that kind of breather for them. It's the
mm,
pressure is kind of like lower on them now that now that. But then again, Airbus also going to Airbus too. Both companies have backlogs of orders now, and this is something that we're gonna see a lot of cancellations. This is not gonna be good for their suppliers who have already probably given the parts. This is not gonna be good for Boeing and Airbus. This is not, and like I said, this is I don't know how I can emphasize this. We have these are contracts of billions in some cases. I
mm,
know
yeah.
Boeing had before this whole pandemic blew up. It was the 787s with ANA actually they ordered more. I'm not sure about if ANA would like those kind of airlines. I think depends on the airline that if they need those aircraft. United, American, Delta, they may not need those like brand new jets. They might cancel them. Um, Actually, yeah. So I'll just wrap it there, and I'll just read these comments. Hayes mentioned about Hawaiian Airlines. Yeah, with the U.S. airlines, I believe they got a bailout here too. Um, there's an article I'm on my around 64 million from the federal government. Hawaiian Airlines, 64 million U.S. around that amount,
Mm.
and from the Honolulu Civil Beat, uh, they're according to the CEO of Hawaiian Airlines, it's around 4 million per day that they're burning through. Now, in terms of billions of dollars that airlines deal with, this doesn't sound much, but yeah, this does eventually eat into the revenues. And I won't be surprised. I don't have the figures, exact figures with me, but this is an airline that's like very crucial to the Hawaiian Islands. This is like okay, yeah. So you have American United and Delta serving the islands.
Mm.
They don't just have flights to Honolulu. They have flights to Maui and the other islands. Hawaii, the Big Island, of course, and you also have Kauai. But this is the inner island airline, and you have Southwest doing. They started their own. Um, but Hawaiian has that network of international flights to Korea, I believe, and Japan. Especially Japan is a big market, so that's why this is a kind of airline that actually does get favorable reviews, and I don't think people in the U.S. won't mind versus American or United that those bigger airlines that some
Mm.
people just love to hate. The perception of Hawaiian is much better. In terms of Hawaiian's prospects beyond this, again, like I said, they have some domestic competition within the islands. Um, but from Hawaiian, they do compete. They have an intense competing competitive market to places like Japan. Um, they'll cut some capacity, but I believe that they're gonna be focusing more on their U.S. West Coast flights like Las Vegas or you know markets where they have a very strong I don't know if I can't say that they have a very strong presence, but they've had a historical presence on those routes. Probably they're not probably not going to focus on Asia for the short term, but I do believe that
Mm.
they're
Yeah.
one of those airlines that I believe that they're not gonna be like going out yet anytime soon. Okay, Mark Romel. Aside from Boeing and Embraer, Airbus and Rolls Royce canceled their EFAN X project. Okay,
Yeah, I've heard that news also.
and
The Airbus E-Fan X is the upgraded. It was supposed to be an upgraded version of the British Aerospace RJ100. You
mm,
know,
yeah,
so they are developing that together with Rolls-Royce to provide electric turbofan engines. The AE 2100 turboshaft engine. So basically, they plan to upgrade the avionics of the RJ100 into a more modernized system, and also to provide much optimized turbofan or power plant for the said aircraft. No, I think this is a really sad opportunity. You know, it
interesting.
was a good opportunity for them to revive this trusty aircraft, but I think with the events that's going on right now, and there is actually zero demand for new aircraft at this time, at this point of the pandemic.
Mm,
No,
yeah,
but this is a practical decision to make, canceling the eFan X development. But it is a sad development for me.
okay. Hayes commented again. So he was the one who asked about Hawaiian and cancellations of. Okay, so this is some cancellations of the 737 Max. I believe was canceled from Malaysia Airlines. Yeah, actually,
Mm.
the 737 Max right now, Lion Air, I believe they're kind of in on the rocks with the with Boeing right now with that aircraft because Lion Air, of course, JT610. Or wait, I'm not confusing my flight numbers with the Ethiopian flight that went down. Um, yeah, Malaysia Airlines, they have a fleet. I think majority of their fleet is 737-800s, and they were going to be using those aircraft for to replace the 800s. Um, and Mohammed, what is the situation with Qantas? I think I keep hearing about Virgin Australia. Qantas so far. Do you have anything on Qantas right now? I'm sorry, I'm kind of like my I don't
Uh,
have anything
you know,
immediately to say about Qantas right now.
scrolling through the newsfeed, I actually haven't heard any news with Qantas. But yeah, Virgin Australia, yes. But with regards to Qantas, the usual airlines, they have grounded most of the fleet. And I've seen those stunning photos with the A330 and 787s parked in Australia. So yeah, I think I'm not hearing any latest updates with Qantas. But uh, if I
Get more information. This is from Sam Chewy's blog here. Um, this is from about a month or two ago that they've grounded their restoring their 747s now. Of course, they're not using those big. Everybody's like not using the big jets right now, or
mm,
most of them. I believe there's some airlines that might be using them, for especially for the cargo airlines right now that they're going around. And actually, it is a good aircraft right now, like those large aircraft for cargo. But if you're a passenger service, no. So
yeah,
yeah,
if
that's.
it's for cargo, there is a really great demand for cargo right now.
But
So I think that is why airlines are also converting their passenger aircraft into cargo. Yeah, we
yeah,
forgot to talk about that also.
that's actually a good way to earn the. I mean,
Mm,
changing the seats. But of course, I think that's a future. We might be actually. Here's another interesting thing, like an interesting idea, like with this whole bringing cargo and these aircraft being converted, we might be seeing some like Air Canada, for example, is one of those classic cases right now that's been in the news. Um, Air Asia has this thing with the teleport where they're using there. You can actually order, you can actually request or kind of like a request service to carry cargo on their aircraft. So that's
mm,
something that we could be seeing in the future, like in the short term, especially one of those revenue sources that they can use.
mm,
Um, Bringing in additional, and of course Air Asia's situation, they have different. One of the cool things about Air Asia's company as a business, they don't just have the aviation business, they have other uh, business ventures. So that's, and I think that's going to be a key thing for them. Then the reason why I say, another reason why I'm kind of hesitant to say that, I know Malaysian, there's some folks in fact Malaysia that want to see the merger of
mm.
Malaysia Airlines, but they operate two different kind of ideologies, like I said. And another thing too that I we need to mention is also like Air Asia's philosophy on diversifying its business ventures. They have like the online venture now. In their website is basically its own different entity that they sell other airlines flights.
Yeah,
Um, they have the teleport. They also have a restaurant apparently. I'm not sure, Hayes, if or anyone in Malaysia right now who can actually verify this for me.
and they
Apparently,
have hotels. Yeah.
or I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure what stake do they have, but it's those kind of companies, and you don't want to be in a situation. I think the difference with, and also like Air Asia has those liabilities with the leasers. That's another, especially Air Asia X. We keep going back to them.
Mm,
The most, I think, in terms of the, everybody does not want to see, except for I guess the former head of Malaysia's aviation industry. I guess we don't want to see. I mean, except for him. I guess he has some bad memories or bad experiences dealing with Air Asia, but business wise and government wise. But for most of us, especially with Air Asia being around in these different countries, you know, this is like probably like this kind of airline is not the kind of airline you want to see. This is gonna send a bad message. Now, is it the perfect airline? No, I have my own issues with it. Um, I'm not gonna say that it's the greatest airline. I think in terms of my favorite airlines, and I think an airline more well positioned is like All Nippon Airways or like a Japan Airlines. I think, or Qantas. Actually, Qantas. I go back to Qantas because um, at the end of the day, like Australia is one of the more isolated areas, and you need air travel. So and those cities are basically along the coastline. So if Virgin Australia goes down, then you really need like an air service like Qantas or the Jetstar, of course. The Jetstar group also. But I'm not gonna say anything exactly with Jetstar because I'm a little bit nervous about them too. Though I
mm.
haven't really heard any bad news about them. Case I love Japanese carriers. Yeah, me too. Like, um, and I think they're well positioned. The Korean, actually, here's an interesting thing. The bailouts too, besides the U.S. carriers, you also have like Korean Air. I just saw this earlier today. Like, and I need to read more of it. Korean Air and Asiana. I think and also the other airlines that are. off my mind right now, but I know Korean Air and Asiana are going to be getting some sort of bailout from the South Korean government.
Mm.
Um,
Hopefully, because Korean Air has been struggling
yeah,
lately. I think I've written an article
yeah.
about them last February, so they've grounded most of the fleet already.
The bigger concern that I have right now is Asiana because they're just going through this acquisition phase with the new company because they were bought, I believe they were acquired from Kumo Group had the issues
Mm.
last year. They've been struggling financially actually. They were running losses even last year. So like all these airlines, Air India, Asiana, Malaysia Airlines, Thai Airways, these are big carriers that I'm very concerned about because these are airlines have been running like losses, and Hong Kong Airlines too. Um, Airlines that have been running losses for years, and now like we have come to a situation where it's like Thanos showing up like, I am inevitable. Like, okay, they're sweating their the executives here are trying to like fight for survival even more now. And these are the airlines I'm like really 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 concerned about, and now it's like a whole list of airlines are like just joining like the whole list of like, okay, please don't go out. I'm pretty sure there's like some folks in their respective countries that are like, please don't have these airlines. There are several South Korean airlines, budget carriers that have, yeah, these South Korean carriers, the seven, there's like six or seven. One of the E-Star suspended their flights in April, mid-April. Um, and of course we had it on the Dirk. We had the Jeju Air and E-Star thing.
Mm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
one.
Mm.
The story behind that, E-Star was struggling last year with the trade war between Japan and Korea. And E-Star, like these South Korean low cost carriers, really need the traffic between the two big markets of Japan and China. They have the Philippines, they have destinations in like Southeast Asia, but
Mm.
those
Yeah.
markets of China and the domestic market, but also like it's highly competitive between these countries. And I mean countries, the cities and you know and for them like, and it was only a matter, and for me it was only a matter of time before at least we saw some sort of consolidation. So this is like the first case when, plus another thing about E-Star is they've had the 737 Max. They were the first South Korean carrier to have the aircraft and operate it. So to
Mm.
have them stored and to have the Japanese air demand downturn, and now we have the pandemic, has just been like a year of nightmare for them. And
Yeah.
Jeju Air is not out of
A
the
bad
woods.
combination.
No, Jeju Air is not out of the woods. These South Korean carriers are not out of the woods yet because we now have they just got hit with the the growth of the growth of cases in South Korea. Like after China, it just so happened that South Korea was the biggest number of cases after, like the weeks after. I'm like, okay, this is absolute, and they were already canceling flights as early as February to their destinations. So this year we could see potentially more. Now, in terms of the budget carriers, and here's more crazy thing. Now you have like Fly Gang One that just started, which
Mm.
these,
Yeah, the new
yeah.
carrier.
Then you have Air Premia and Air OK. Now this puts their launches, those two, Air OK and Air Premia, their plans in jeopardy. Um, Air Premia is the one that's looking to do the long haul and out of Seoul Incheon. The other, I think, Air OK is I think they're gonna try to launch flights from Cheongju, which is just south of Seoul. Um, yeah, I don't think they're gonna launch this year, and especially with the way that But I do believe South Korea's aviation industry, like outbound travel, will recover. But in South Korea, I am really concerned about Asiana right now because Hyundai, I think Hyundai Development Corp is gonna be taking over and I think
Mm.
the South Korean government is really trying to hope that before they give bailout money, or in that process, that acquisition gets completed, gets finalized. That's been going on for like over a year now. And
Hopefully, we will be
yeah,
seeing more optimistic news with regards to those Korean carriers.
yeah, but my outlook is kind of grim because this is in a market where it's highly competitive. Um, it's a highly sought after market for Southeast Asia, the tourism markets like the Philippines.
So
Yeah,
yeah, that's why
that's
after the COVID-19 pandemic, we will be seeing
yeah.
uh, more mergers, especially in the European region. Also, we will be seeing. most of that.
Yeah, I think Asia not so much because I don't think the Thai government officials want to merge Thai Airways with some
Mm.
like a smaller airline because I think in Asia you have this sense of pride like Malaysia Airlines for example like this I like to pick on them but I also like to discuss about Malaysia Airlines because it's so like I said the politics behind it and there's a lot of pride behind it too, history and a lot of former workers and I think a lot of employees who probably don't want to merge. um, they want to keep that name as much as possible flying.
Mm.
Okay, what is the situation with Emirates? Emirates. I saw I did see that they are doing the recovery flights right now. So they are, but again, they have the social distancing, the face masks regulations, and the I don't I'm pretty sure that they are gonna get some funding from the UAE government, and then as with the and right now I think they're suspended until May 16, if I'm
I
not
think
mistaken,
it's
or no?
already by July.
Oh,
Push
July.
back to July.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Emirates is one of those carriers that since they're one of those carriers that uh besides the legacy, I think in terms of travel like and this is a thing about I going back to your point about point to point travel, I think to an extent within like I think we already saw the point to point in these short to medium haul routes. In terms
Mm.
of long haul routes, like these Project Sunrise kind of thing, in this I've said this before and I'll say it again, um, especially for the kind of travel that in the situation that we are in, and this Project Sunrise is probably not going to happen anytime soon. Um,
Yeah, exactly.
for the most part, we're still like these air like that's why I said like these connecting airlines is gonna be like essential. I would say like for short like ANA, JAL, Korean Air, Asiana, like their hubs. Cathay Pacific. I think when it recovers for Cathay Pacific, these hub airlines, they're but then when you're talking about domestic travel and regional travel, not so much. Like those who really rely on regional travel will not so
Mm.
much. That's why Malaysia Airlines they're not strong like Trans-Pacific or Transatlantic or no transcontinental routes. They're ones that you need to be concerned about. Emirates, I do believe they're in a good state given that their reputation and people do like traveling with them.
Yeah, although they will, have to face a reduced capacity at this time, but
Yeah,
I'm
the
pretty confident that Emirates will bounce back.
and I think they're for now they're not using their A380s right now. I believe
Oh yeah, mm. Most of the
this is
A380s.
not probably not the right aircraft to use. Especially you don't want to be running 8 flights a day to London from Dubai when right now you have nobody on them unless you're carrying cargo. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like I said, that's a really good advantage if you really if Emirates wants to use it for like converting it for cargo supplies and whatnot. As long as there's someone paying for it, then by all means, why not? I mean, but that's up to them though. I'm not. I don't have the exact numbers with me, but this is like we're discussing this as we go. So
Mm.
the fun part of this. Um, what is your favorite aircraft? I think I would go with the If I were to pick one, uh,
So what would it be?
actually, yeah. If it's something if an aircraft that I've flown, I would go with the 737-800.
Mm.
Small aircraft, but very usable in different situations. The 737 has always been one of my favorites.
Maybe, yeah, one of the most versatile.
Yeah,
And yeah, same with the Airbus A320 and the 737 and A320 are, the ideal aircraft for maybe startup carriers who would like to expand,
yeah. No,
So,
so I'll preface that the aircraft that I like to fly, like I like the A320s. Don't get me wrong, but
mm,
and I'm not a Boeing fan. I will criticize them, and I criticize them heavily in my videos for the 737 Max. I'm maybe not too heavily, but this is something they need to know. But you gotta fix the shit. In terms of aircraft, I like covering. It's the A321 XLR. In the new
oh yeah,
in terms of writing and
the next big thing.
in terms of video, A321 XLR is my favorite to report on. And I'm actually I would love to try a flight on that. And and when discussing the Max and the A321, they're like the next generation of the short medium haul. I mean, the 757s, the older A320s, the future, like you have these Neos and CEOs now.
Mm.
But in terms of the versatility to be able to land, like do these flights from like small airports to like a big city, like 7 hours away, we could see a Davao Tokyo flight being done with a 321 XLR, or Cebu Sydney. These
Yeah.
are the kind of routes that
Uh,
I would, from the Philippines. I think from the Philippines, and then from Malaysia. Actually, the one I'm thinking from Singapore. The reason why, like for Scoot, you had the Singapore to Busan. They wanted to start that with the Max, but because of
mm,
the Max,
mm.
I think Jeju Air and no, not sure, Silk Air or Scoot. But I know Jeju Air had to like do some modifications on their Dash 800 for the Seoul. I mean, the Singapore Busan route.
But you know, the Airbus A320 XLR is actually a very great move for Airbus because it opens a new horizon or a new market for the Airbus A321 family, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Because the A321 XLR is gearing up for the new trend for the aviation, that is to go to the direct flights. You know, the A321 XLR has lesser seats but has longer range, meaning they can operate routes with lesser passengers but on longer flights. Those are very ideal for flights originating from secondary routes, such as what you have mentioned earlier, the Davao Tokyo service. That would be of great uh, example for the Airbus A321, and also Cebu Singapore. I mean
Sydney. I think Sydney would be really
Sydney.
doable.
That will be a great market for the A321 XLR because the A330 may not suffice, you know. So the A321 XLR will be the next generation 757 for long and thin routes.
Yeah, I just did the video like a few days ago, and I think the 757 in the US, if you go to the US, you'll see them a lot in like Newark, for
Ah, yeah.
example.
Mm.
Newark, especially Newark Airport in near, serves New York, one of those big three airports in the city there. Um, you'll see it transatlantic routes, and then also when it comes to like within the U.S., it's very heavily used. I'd say like the 737 and the 757 are the workhorses, but
Mm.
um, no, the A321, I think Americans using them more now, and Delta also. You're gonna see more of that now. Um, they're gonna be switching up those aircraft sooner or later.
Actually, for the future of aviation, we expect more of the A320 Neo and the 737 Maxes. If it flies again,
Yeah,
hopefully. You know.
I think I think with this but then the problem with Boeing is like some of their employees are also sick. Some of them got sick, so of course they're trying to resume their operations as
Oh,
soon as
for
possible.
COVID.
Yeah, I would assume Airbus is like on. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any reports that Airbus facilities because they got some people got sick, but you wouldn't be surprised at this point. With the way it's spread and people getting sick nowadays. Um, in terms of yeah, like these aircraft, I hope they can get back because their backlogs are, we could see some lawsuits. So you know these companies, these Airbus and Boeing, are at a loss right now at this point. It doesn't matter. It's like a lose-lose situation for them. um Boeing's getting sued left and right for the Max. Like, some, I think there's a Kuwaiti firm that just sued them. um and this is like contracts. You're like, hey, how come you didn't deliver this aircraft on time? Airbus, we're getting on the point where Airbus is also having their own issues of backlog too, like the suppliers last year. That was a big thing, and
Mm.
nowadays, and now like quietly, hopefully we get more companies. I think this is the problem when you have like these duopolies, and it's changing now. You have Embraer now. Hopefully Embraer actually can, though it's unlikely. You just wish that they can actually make a bigger aircraft, like a much like a E90, E190 is actually one of those. Man, that's like a, now Boeing's probably like, man, what have we done?
Actually, I'm also being positive on the Airbus A220 series for the mid-size aircraft market, right? Because it really fills that market for some routes
Hmm.
that are for regional routes, of course. So I am rooting for the Airbus A220 Neo, and I am expecting more of them will be flying with Asia Pacific Airlines also in the next few years.
Yeah, I think yeah, the A321 XLR will be the Asian version of the 757 in the
Mm-hmm.
1980s. Like the 1980s, it was the similar situation in going on now. Like you have the crowding, the growing air traffic, and because at the time, the North American market was actually getting more crowded compared to like Asia, where you had just like what Japan Airlines in Japan, um, you had Singapore Airlines, Malaysia Airlines was like the lone, or a Brunei Airlines in Brunei, and you had like the flag carrier era of Asia. Now, at the time, the 1980s was the deregulation period of the U.S. So, fast forward 30 years, it's now Asia that we're seeing more deregulation, even to the point where China now is like, now they're doing this one. Actually, here's another thing. Like, I think we can discuss to how airlines will be regulated, or how they are gonna regulate their flying for the period immediate, especially for the immediate period where like the Chinese carriers are doing the one airline, one country. So if, let's say, Air
Mm.
China, if they start a Beijing to let's say Tokyo, or I don't, they're not doing Beijing Tokyo, they're doing Shanghai to Tokyo. They can't do a Beijing route for now that they otherwise would normally do. And then if it's a foreign airline, like let's say Delta, they can only do Detroit to maybe Shanghai. They can't do a Beijing route for now, at least for, and it's a once a week kind of thing. And again, this is to I think there's still, they have stated that this is for the time being to restrict the imported cases right now, because that's their biggest concern. Um, I'm not gonna question like all the WHO or whatnot, the situation with the WHO and the responsibility of what country right now, but that's the policy that they're doing right now. And would this be something, and I'll toss it to anyone here, would this be a situation that we could see in your respective countries, like in the Philippines? And we can actually, if you want to start with the Philippines here, since we're both here, we can actually start with the Philippines. And is this something that we could see, like governments imposing restrictions on flights, the frequency of flights to destinations from airports?
Maybe in the Philippines, I wouldn't see. No, I wouldn't see it being implemented in the Philippines. There won't be any. For me, there won't be any flight frequency restrictions on the government side, but there will be significant flight reductions on the airline side.
I see.
So I think the government will not be the one who will restrict, but the airlines, because of the reduced capacity and the reduced travel demand that they are getting. Now, with other Asia Pacific airlines, I think it really depends on the government's efforts on quashing COVID-19. So I think in the Philippines that will not be implemented in any way. What do you think?
I think the Philippines is more in terms of, I think the I have to I did not leave this, I leave this information out, that these the Chinese carriers, the majority of the Chinese carriers, except for maybe Hainan, Hainan
Mm,
Airlines, I would say is H&A Group. For the most part, the Chinese carriers are government owned, and they have a stake in not making sure that none of them go out of business. Because for a while they were trying to do a lot of international routes, and they realized it's not practical. While they can compete with the lower fares, it's not practical
mm,
to be doing these, like the New York, Beijing, New York, having like all these carriers doing Beijing, New York, or China to New York, and they're not making
mm,
any money on them. So China's in a situation where, yeah, you have a lot of state-run airlines, and they're, I think, also in a way of limiting the competition against them from both, against each other, and also um, from the foreign airlines that have their own services. And I wouldn't be surprised if some Chinese travelers would love to travel, like let's say a Delta, or maybe like a Korean Air, or a
mm,
or the Japan Airlines over their own airlines. I don't know. I can't speak for them. Um,
mm,
China will be the market that will happen. Maybe Vietnam. I don't know. But I don't see that happening in Vietnam as much as
mm.
China.
Yeah.
Another one, Thailand. Thailand, I think if it's looking to protect Thai Airways situation, because right now they're at this point where they're at a mission critical kind of stage. That's another one that we need. Like I said earlier, we mentioned earlier, Thai Airways. We need to mention. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah. But then overall,
I'm running out of things to
Yeah,
say.
China will be the only one that we need to keep an eye on, like that kind of situation.
Oh yeah.
I don't even think South Korea, even as competitive as South Korea is, the airlines in South Korea seem to know where their markets are and how they want to recover. I
Mm.
think they have a good idea of what they want to do. The U.S. carriers, again, market economy. You're not gonna see that. Europe, probably not. But unless there's a significant stake in the government has in the airlines, then otherwise
You know
that's
what's
not gonna happen.
interesting here in the COVID-19 pandemic is the aviation industry in Europe. So I am also keeping an eye in Europe also because uh day by day we are seeing airlines getting bankrupt, so I will keep this posted also.
Yeah, Europe is the right now apparently um, getting the short end of the stick when it comes to this kind of
Mm.
situations right now apparently, and also the budget carriers right now, the Wizz Air, the Norwegian. I'm like, those are the two that I'm like just so concerned about right now. Actually, wait, I'm getting, yeah. I think Norwegian right now they've suspended. Um, then you have these bigger groups too, these airlines. And Italy right now, I think for sure Italy, we're not gonna see anything get back to normal anytime soon, especially the way they got the pandemic hit in that area. Um, Especially inbound tourism that Italy is just basically shut up for like at least the
Mm.
next 6 months of the year. Spain
By the
too.
way, just want to talk about this now. We discussed this topic earlier, but just want to share that IATA has been asking heads of state of several governments here in the Asia Pacific region with regards to assistance to their airlines. No, according to IATA,
I see.
India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Japan, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Thailand, and also the Philippines are priority countries that need assistance or rapid assistance from the government. Now, what can you say with regards to this news? Do you think airlines will step up and help the air carriers? Because to my experience, as what I've heard also, the Philippine government during the assistance to the Philippines, and I hope this is not the case with regards to the struggles here in COVID-19. What do you think?
It's not actually in terms of the Philippine government specifically. So I'll go ahead and discuss with the Philippine government for the short term.
Mm,
Um, I do recall in the situation of the shutdown of Philippine Airlines in the 1998, there
mm,
was government intervention, and I think it was a mediation, more of a mediation rather than a bailout. Um,
mm,
Off my head, but I again, you know, this is probably like in Asian countries, the governments have had a history of government intervention in airlines for, and even up to now, like Singapore Airlines, for example, they got their billions right now of Singapore dollars, of 15 billion. Singapore's government has the stake in it through this Temasek Holdings. That's um, Then you have, of course, Malaysia Airlines now is the Khazanah Nasional. I think I would assume that Khazanah Nasional would be the one to deal with any financial needs of Malaysia
mm.
Airlines. And also Khazanah would likely, if Air Asia sought a bailout, that would be the company that, or the firm or organization that will be dealing with them, the Malaysian government arm dealing with them directly through them. Um, Indonesia, I again, these countries have a history of government intervention, and again, like Japan Airlines in 2010, they had the what would have been a bankruptcy protection, and they there's a
Mm.
reason why that Japan Airlines did not get as many routes as ANA out of Haneda because of the negotiations, and that actually was something that kind of affected them for years on at Haneda.
Well, interestingly, during this COVID-19 pandemic, I see that most of flag carriers or that are the symbol of the country and also part of their culture. Those are the airlines that are presumably safe from any bankruptcy, because if that airline has a cultural value and it already speaks of the identity of the nation, then most probably the government will do something to bail them out, and there will be financial intervention, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Also, that's a similar situation in Air India. I think likely Air India, um, amazing that they've gone this far and they've had their own financial struggles. They're at this point where it's again like Thai Airways. Their mission was another one. Um, Virgin Australia, that's another one. Like again, we should really be concerned because I think in terms of Australia, they look at Qantas more as the actual flag carrier, and Virgin Australia is more of like the newcomer, like Jetstar.
Mm.
Even though that they're based there, but technically, in terms of the influence, I do believe like the Virgin Group has like the bigger influence in terms of what happens on that airline. But
Well, by
yeah,
the way,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of like I said, the history of government intervention among the airlines. Even though that some airlines, like I think Cebu Pacific and Cebu Pacific has never had a government bailout from the Philippines, but that could
Mm.
happen. This could be like the unprecedented situation that it actually warrants that kind of response at this point because of course Cebu Pacific has some of these routes like some areas that Philippine Airlines may not serve, like these smaller
Mm.
markets. And Philippine Airlines to an extent has you know has some routes there too, but for the most part, you have these routes that Cebu Pacific route operates at within, like especially within Mindanao. You know, this is not served by any airline unless they see
Mm.
like there's other they don't see the means to do it. Then you know at this point right now, but the only thing concerning right now is like the the coffers of the Philippine government, and if this gets to go ahead. Because right now, like the Philippine government is also concerned about reopening the economy and the
Mm.
option of reopening it, and also offering the programs right now. They're doing all these other things right now. They're it's a distracting situation. Like so many things are being everybody wants to get bailed out. So many it's not just the aviation industry that's suffering. The restaurants, small businesses that are gonna go under, small business owners and uh, people who
Yeah.
work there, along with the big firms who may go under too. Um, People who lose their jobs who could otherwise be traveling, and you bail out the airlines, but you only solve one part of the problem. You're gonna have still have travelers who cannot travel. You don't have enough money
Mm.
to travel. So that's another bigger issue. I think the governments need to really think about before, like, yes, you can bail them out, but you have a situation where what about the travelers who are gonna be the ones who actually are the ones paying to pay in the tickets or the revenues beyond the bailout money, because the bailout money will only go so far.
Mm.
This is the
Yeah.
thing, and this is emphasized actually in the Singapore Airlines situation, where they know that the airline will still have the value of not just the cultural value, but they will have that uh, the travelers coming in to the customer base still will be there, and
Well, yeah. Hopefully, this will not last any further. Uh, by the way, just to add, I read this. The Air Carriers Association of the Philippines, or the ACAP, comprising of the country's three leading airlines, that is PAL, Cebu Pacific, and AirAsia, is seeking government support, including waiver of airport charges and credit guarantees to its three airline
okay.
members, as it foresees the beleaguered industry shrinking in the next 2 years. So according to ACAP, or the ACAP, the aviation industry, well, most likely in the Philippines, will not resume to normalcy within the next 2 years.
Yeah, actually, the waiving of landing fees, that's not unprecedented. Actually, I do believe South Korea is actually doing part of that, and Hong Kong is also
Mm.
to an extent. Hong Kong, and they're gonna be now. Here's the fun part. Now, for all of you here still in the chat here, um, this might interest you because hopefully that they might do a sweepstakes or contest or some giveaway for these airline tickets. Now I'm not sure. Hopefully the airlines still like have they're waiving landing fees and other fees related to airport operations. So that's kind of like a crutch though. That's not going to solve, like I said, that's not going to solve the overall bigger picture problem of bringing in the travelers back in. South Korea is also doing a similar program with, and as part of the
Mm.
government assistance. This is likely going to be done in other countries too. So this is not just the Philippines. This has also already been done in South Korea and Hong Kong, and I wouldn't be surprised in the states too. Different
Mm.
airports and cities, or in Europe too.
So yeah, most
Yeah.
probably that's it.
If there's anything else, I know everybody kind of like
Hmm.
and usually with these chats though, like they go out on and off. So don't worry. Like some people, like Citation earlier just chimed in. Yeah, he's one of those who comes into the chats all the time. Um, yeah, these chats. If you're, and by the way, yeah. So with that said, I think yeah, this is almost 2 hours now. We're almost on the mark. I mentioned like 1 to 2 hours. We might go a little bit over. Um, if there's nothing else anyone wants to discuss, I think we can end it here.
Hmm.
Basically, I actually before we go, Dirk is from Aviation Updates Philippines, which focuses a lot on the Filipinos. I mean, the Philippines, not Filipinos. So
Yes.
if you are interested in the air aviation and travel scene in the Philippines, especially like one of the actually yeah, personally I do like discussing the Philippines because it's one of those markets where it's fast growing yet it's one of those markets that's like okay, what's next and what the heck are they doing? Um
It brings you surprises every now and then,
Yeah, but
isn't it?
it's one of those growing markets where and because of the islands, and I think you can agree to this with the islands and the different cities. It's a very Manila centric market. So like I said, with
Exactly.
the
Hmm.
whole, even though that I've done videos and you've done articles, and I've also written some of the articles on the website about the developments of Clark and Cebu and Davao. It's like for some weird reason the aviation market lives and dies in Manila. But you can also
Hmm.
you can read all of that and also like learn more about what's going on in the Philippines, and the website is can you just go ahead and just plug it in here?
Oh yeah, sure. If you'd like to learn more on the latest aviation news in the Philippines, and also a bit of Southeast Asia and internationally, you can visit us at our website at www.auphilippines.com. That is
Okay. Okay.
aupphilippines.com. AU
Let
Philippines.
me
Okay. You
AU
can also like us on
Philippines.
Facebook with in Aviation Updates Philippines. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at AU Philippines. Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
folks. The website is
we
on
have
the chat log.
partnered actually with Flights in Asia to provide region-wide content, Southeast Asian region content, to bring readers with a more expansive coverage in the aviation industry.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll be doing that more, and while
Mhm.
I will be putting in some articles related to the Philippines, I will try to see if other, like, let's say there's Zip Air. Actually, it's a weird thing, like again, the Philippines again is one of those markets where Manila, but they're trying. It's a very slow development. It's like this one of those weird markets.
Mhm.
It's growing, but it's not so much like yes, like other markets where it's like you see like um how should I say this? You don't see that many airlines getting developed. You see airlines come and go, and here's the weird thing: like you'd assume like a travel market like the Philippines of like 100 million people, but um yet there's like it's dominated by three airlines, and if you go to like aviation updates, you can actually see more of the news of what's going on. Um, Also, Manila Airport, also other airport developments in the Philippines. You also cover that too as well, right?
Yes, of course.
So if you
The
wanna,
latest developments on airport news, crashes, especially new airline routes, we've got that covered. And also in our website, we've got a specific section for COVID-19 updates. So you could also check that out.
yeah. So go ahead. Don't forget before tonight or whenever you're free, check that out too.
Mm.
Also, by the way, yeah, in closing, very much thank you very much. There's also the Flights in Asia website, along with the
Yeah.
but for the most part, like I said, the focus, this is where you get the commentary, where you get like the live streams. So if you want to get more of these, and we will be doing more, hopefully doing more, I think. If you want to do a focus on the Philippines like development, and this is probably one of the last few I want to do on COVID, because this is getting repetitive to the point where I think this story has been overdone. The question now is when things recover and what happens after. And
Mm.
hopefully that we've answered some of those and had given you guys some ideas of what we could see in terms of what travelers, like, let's say the routes will be reduced, or maybe the markets may not be as the same for the short term, and we may not, hopefully I don't want to see these suits by the time I get back on the plane, you know. As much as it's cool and all, I don't want to be going in like a spacesuit or whatever at this point.
Yeah.
uh, I will wear a face mask. I hopefully all you do too. um I think we'll go ahead and end it there. Stay
Hmm.
safe. Don't forget, if you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. The comments will be open, and the stream will be available as a link on the channel as well. So if you missed anything and you want to go back to it, uh, the link will be available. This is everybody. This is Flights in Asia. Jeff signing off. Dirk, any last parting words?
Yeah, and this is Dirk Salcedo from Aviation Update Philippines, signing off. So keep safe, everyone, and thank you.
All right, everybody, stay safe. Have a good one. Good night.
Good night.
Have a great day too. And now where's